What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. I hope every single one of you had a better day than what I just had today. Day one of free agency, I'm going to be honest, it broke me. Last night, I was on top of the world when the Steelers got DK Metcalf. I went to sleep wet dreaming about Justin Fields throwing dimes to DK and George Pickens just for him to sign with the New York Jets. This is one of my saddest moments ever as a fan of the Steelers. I really wanted to run it back one more season with Justin Fields in the black and gold. And I want to lead this episode off with discussing what the Jets are going to get out of Justin Fields this season. Sam Darnold, he was the best quarterback available in free agency this year. He's heading to Seattle. Is he going to be able to pick up from where he left off last season, or is he going to come back down to earth? You know, one thing that I don't understand is why common sense is called common sense if not everybody has it. And last year, we all saw how bad the Texans' offensive line was. And it's pretty evident what their biggest issue was going into the offseason was the offensive line. So how were they going to improve that? Well, the first thing they do is trade away their best offensive lineman, Laremy Tunsil, who's one of the best left tackles in the game, and they just choose to go backwards. So now your offensive line is even worse now than what it was last season. So we'll get into that, and then we'll bounce around the rest of the league. Got thoughts on the Patriots' aggressive free agency signings. They've been swiping that credit card nonstop. It's like every time you look up, they're signing somebody. Jaycee Horner has become the highest paid cornerback in NFL history. Who? I'm going to tell you about Jaycee Horner later on. And there's a few under the radar free agency signings that I want to spotlight. Before we dive into it, do me a favor. Smash that like button. It helps us rank higher in the YouTube search algorithm. It helps us grow. Subscribe if you're new. Remember, you can find us on all podcasting platforms. Link in the description and pinned comment below. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. Give us a 5-star review if you enjoy, and let's get into it. You ever had a situation happen to you that forced your heart to drop and you just lost all the feeling in your stomach? It felt like you just lost everything you just ate. That's how I felt when I saw the news that Justin Fields signed with the New York Jets. I really wanted to see him run it back one more year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I truly believe that this is the year Justin Fields finally is able to put it all together. Yes, he is going to the Jets, a place that has been notoriously known for being a quarterback graveyard. It's the place where quarterback careers go to die. Watch Justin Fields flip that narrative around, though. This is not the same Jets organization that we've seen these last couple of years. There just seems to be a new vibe and a new energy with Aaron Glenn as their new head coach. And Aaron Glenn has had a firsthand glimpse of what Justin Fields can be when he's able to put it all together. Remember, when Aaron Glenn was the defensive coordinator of the Lions, when Justin Fields was still the quarterback for the Bears, Justin Fields always played his best games against Aaron Glenn's defense. He gave him a lot of headaches to the point where the Lions in some games just went all out on stopping Justin Fields, and they weren't worried about anybody else. I like the coaching staff that Aaron Glenn has put together, and I also like the situation that Justin Fields is walking into. This is probably the best situation that Justin Fields has been in up to this point in his career. You got an offensive line that's better than any unit Justin Fields has played with. You have a wide receiving core that's led by his former college teammate and Garrett Wilson. You have two monsters at running back in Breece Hall and Braylon Allen that's going to be lining up behind Justin Fields. And with him taking last year to mostly be Russell Wilson's backup, I believe that was good for the growth of his career. Sometimes when you're able to look at things from a different perspective, it's able to help you reset. It helps you reevaluate yourself, figure out what you need to do to improve so you can grow. And going into this situation now, Justin Fields has a coaching staff that fully believes in him. The Jets, before free agency even started, it was rumored that they were heavily interested in signing Justin Fields because they want to see if they can do what no team has been able to do up to this point, which is unlock that untapped potential, which is why Justin Fields has cultivated such a massive fan base despite having a losing record as a starter. And as a diehard Steelers fan, I felt like he showed a lot of improvement during his brief stint as a Steelers starting quarterback. He had 10 total touchdowns, 5 through the air, 5 on the ground, only 1 interception. He had a career high in completion percentage. The Jets got one of the biggest value signings in free agency. You get Justin Fields for a 2-year deal, $40 million, $30 million of that is fully guaranteed. That's a huge steal considering what the quarterback market has become nowadays. If Justin Fields doesn't work out, it only helps the New York Jets because guess what? You'll be in position to draft any of the top quarterback prospects in next year's draft class. The 2026 quarterback class looks way more promising than the quarterback class that we got this year. But if Justin Fields is able to put it all together, you can couple the elite mobility with consistent passing ability. Not only are the Jets going to be in the playoffs, but they finally are going to have the long-term solution to their quarterback woes. You thought that Aaron Rodgers was finally going to give you good quarterback play. And although he did play pretty well, he wasn't playing at the same level that he once used to play at when he was winning MVPs with the Packers. Justin Fields, though, a few years ago, he was an MVP favorite. And he also finished 10th in MVP voting as well. So the skill set is there. The talent is there. Can the Jets just package it and put it all together for it to come full throttle for Justin Fields? You know, maybe he's one of those quarterbacks that it takes a little bit longer for him to reach his potential. Maybe he's a late bloomer like an Alex Smith, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Justin Fields revive his career with the Jets. We've seen over the last 3 years quarterbacks like Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, and recently Sam Darnold revive their careers going into the right situation. And right now, with what the Jets have, I mean, it's perfect for a guy like Justin Fields to resurrect himself, to prove himself that he has what it takes to be a long-time solution at quarterback. And this is probably the last opportunity that Justin Fields is ever going to have to really be a QB1 in this league again. So with the offensive line the Jets have, with the coaching staff they have assembled around Justin Fields and him reuniting with Garrett Wilson, this is a perfect situation for him to have a really good, feel-good story in 2025. Over these last 3 years, we've seen multiple quarterbacks have these random revival arcs, and don't be surprised if you see Justin Fields following the trend of that, because I love Aaron Glenn so much, and I got a lot of belief in what he's going to turn the New York Jets into, and I don't think they would have been heavily pursuing Justin Fields if they didn't believe that they were going to be able to build an offense that can get the most out of him. And with what they're paying him, it seems like the Steelers were nowhere near the same ballpark in terms of their offer for Justin Fields, which is even more heartbreaking for me as a Steeler fan. But I'm wishing Justin Fields the best, and I'm expecting him to have a really good season with this organization. Like, expect the Jets to no longer be a quarterback graveyard with what Justin Fields is about to do this season. Sam Darnold is heading to the Seattle Seahawks on a 3-year deal worth $33.5 million per season. Will he be able to pick up from where he left off last year, or is he going to come back down to earth? To me, Sam Darnold is no different from what Geno Smith is as a player. The only difference between him and Geno is that you're getting Sam Darnold for $33.5 million. Meanwhile, you were going to have to dish out $40 to $45 million to keep Geno around. What concerns me about Sam Darnold going to the Seahawks is that, unlike Geno Smith, he's not good playing well in a muddy pocket. We saw Sam Darnold unravel his final games as a Viking when teams were able to get heavy pressure in his face and he wasn't able to operate out of clean pockets. Geno Smith was one of the most effective quarterbacks under pressure. The Seattle Seahawks offensive line has been terrible for over the last decade, and That's not hyperbole. That's not a metaphor. Go look it up. This offensive line has been dog water for like a whole decade. The last time the Seahawks had a good offensive line, I was in middle school. They had a center they got from the Saints called Max Unger. That's the last time I remember the Seahawks ever putting an elite offensive line on the field. So with you going from Geno to Sam Darnold, it's not an upgrade, but it definitely could be a downgrade if this thing spirals left like it has the possibility to, with you have a new offensive coordinator as well. There's a lot of key pieces that Sam Darnold is not going to have in Seattle that he had in Minnesota that contributed to him having a revival in 2024. You had Kevin O'Connell, one of the best offensive minds in the league. You were throwing the Jay Jettas and Jordan Addison along with TJ Hawkinson. You had a really solid offensive line. You're not getting that in Seattle anymore. Can he be able to overcome a team that has certain limitations? Can he still be able to produce, top 15, top 12 quarterback numbers on a team that right now we don't really know what direction the Seahawks are heading? Is this a team that is trending downwards after a 10-win season with them getting rid of DK, Tyler Lockett, the main nucleus of guys? When you think of Seattle, you think of those players. Seattle looks foreign right now. I'm not going to say that Sam Darnold is going to not pan out, but I'm not going to sit here and guarantee that he's going to end up being what he was last season. That's why it was such a huge risk trading away Geno Smith, because at least with Geno Smith, in spite of the turnovers, you were still able to get a guy that most weeks was good enough to win you a handful of games. With Sam Darnold, though, he also has turnover issues. He can be a little bit reckless with the ball. Remember when he had like 4 turnovers against the Jacksonville Jaguars? So if you were upset with Geno Smith's red zone turnovers, Sam Darnold's going to piss you off even more this year, possibly. This Sam Darnold signing is a lot more riskier than what you may think. Believe it or not, there's no guarantee that with him getting a defensive-minded coach, transitioning from an offensive-minded head coach, this is going to be smooth sailing for the Seahawks. They're in a place of maybe no return. They still can't get the offensive line right no matter how much they try. And the ground game, Kenneth Walker, he's injury prone. Zach Charbonnet, he was okay, but I got a lot of answers when it comes to the Seahawks. And the reason why I keep bringing up all these external factors is because Sam Darnold's one of those quarterbacks where for him to be efficient, he needs a good supporting cast around him. He needs a good play caller who can help elevate him. When you have Sam Darnold and a tailor-made situation like last year, he can produce. But when you have one too many limitations that Sam Darnold has to make up for, you could possibly get the Sam Darnold that you saw in New York. And this could be a massive disaster of a free agency signing for the Seahawks. Not going to say right now that it will be, but I'm not sure that this is going to play out the way a lot of Seahawks fans are hoping that it will. I think best case scenario, they also end up drafting a quarterback that can sit behind Sam Darnold. Maybe they draft a Jackson Dart or a Jalen Milroe, because they definitely have to have a little bit of some doubts that maybe Sam Darnold was a little bit of lightning in a bottle, and he definitely won't be as good this year as what he was last year. And even if he is a solid starter, is he going to be good enough to put up MVP numbers again? Like, maybe last season was the best that we will ever get out of Sam Darnold. Even if he does end up being pretty good for Seattle, he may not ever be what he was in 2024, because he was putting up MVP numbers. He was an MVP candidate for a good duration of the season. And it's hard to see a guy like Sam Darnold, who hasn't really had, a track record of consistent play, being able to string along 2 back-to-back MVP level seasons. But we will see. Time will tell. I don't get why common sense is called common sense if everybody doesn't seem to have it. So last year, me, you, and everybody on this planet who watched football saw how atrocious the Houston Texans offensive line was. They struggled to run the football. They couldn't protect C.J. Stroud. And coming into this offseason, the Texans knew that improving their offensive line was their number one priority. So why is it that the first move that they make when it comes to the offensive line is trading away their best offensive lineman, left tackle Laremy Tunsil? I've heard about the locker room issues. I've heard that he possibly is seeking a new contract extension. But when you have a guy that is widely considered to be a top 5 left tackle in the game, you don't care about the locker room issues. You don't care about what he's asking for when it comes to contract negotiations, because it is incredibly hard to replace an elite left tackle. It's even harder to find even average left tackle play. So with you getting rid of Laremy Tunsil, there's a 95% possibility that the guy that you bring in to replace him ends up being a lot worse than what he was. So what if he had a few holding penalties? He was one of the highest rated left tackles when it came to pass blocking. Now you get rid of him, and maybe you bring in somebody like a Cam Robinson, but there's a reason why Jacksonville didn't give him a long-term deal. There's a reason why Minnesota decided not to re-sign him. You know, when you have one of the league's worst offenses, getting rid of your best offensive lineman and a consensus top 5 tackle in the game is not a solution to making it better. You can look at it as, well, you're not going to be paying him so much money, so you can spread it out better on improving the offensive line. But how many good offensive linemen are in free agency right now? Not too many. Some of the best have already signed deals, or they either have re-signed with their former teams. So if you are the Houston Texans right now, you have put yourself in a big disadvantage, because now your offensive line risks being a lot worse now that you don't have a reliable blind side for C.J. Stroud. And this is the reason why I wasn't quick to anoint the Houston Texans as the new kings of the AFC South, why I don't feel like they're going to run this division, because this is an organization that for the second offseason in a row, they have neglected the biggest weakness on their offense, which is their offensive line. Now, of course, we still have a few more weeks to go of free agency, so they definitely can make some moves, but there's not really a lot of great guys out there that really should give you a lot of confidence. This is going to be a better unit next season than what it was last year, with you already getting even worse without Laremy Tunsil. Just because he was a member of the worst offensive line in the league doesn't mean that he was just as bad as everybody else. There's a reason why he's one of the best left tackles in the game. You can be a good student in a dumb class. You can be an all-A student in a classroom with a bunch of C, B average kind of classmates. You know, what you are isn't always contributed to your environment. And with Laremy Tunsil, him being as good as what he was on the league's, or one of the league's worst offensive lines, was a huge reason why the Texans never should have traded him. You know, some players are worth the headache. If Laremy Tunsil was a little bit of a problem in the locker room, so what? It's hard to find elite left tackles. You just don't give that up unless you have no choice to. The goal is to keep a guy like Laremy Tunsil around in spite of everything that he may have going on, because it's so hard to get good left tackle play in today's NFL. I don't think enough of you Texans fans understand this. It's incredibly hard to even find an average left tackle in today's NFL. Dan Moore just got overpaid by the Tennessee Titans, and he was graded as the worst left tackle in the league last season. So, I mean, right now, the Texans are trying to tell us that 1 + 1 = 4. It makes no damn sense to get rid of a guy like Laremy Tunsil, no matter how much you try to spin it. Paying a guy like him a lot of money is worth it. You just can't look at it as, well, we got more money to allocate to improving the entire offensive line. No, if you don't have an elite left tackle, your offensive line tremendously drops off from that. So you going from Laremy Tunsil to wherever else you're going to have at left tackle next year, expect a huge downturn at that spot. It's incredibly hard to get elite production out of that position. Why do you think guys like Ronnie Stanley and Trent Williams are getting massive paydays late into their careers? Because when you find a halfway decent left tackle, you want to keep them around as long as possible. I strongly disagree with Texans fans that are trying to justify this bad trade, moving on from their best offensive lineman when he had the worst offensive line in the league. He was the only good part of that. Yeah, he had a few penalties, but it's like, how much of that are you willing to take, knowing how you could see considerable regression out of that spot this year. Now, if I'm wrong, I got no problem coming on here in the minute that I'm wrong, but I really don't like this. I don't like how the Texans traded away their left tackle to help protect another promising young quarterback in Jaden Daniels while putting their young quarterback at an even bigger disservice. Makes no sense to me, but this is 1 + 1 = 4, according to the Houston Texans. This is why common sense isn't so common, because everybody doesn't seem to freaking have it. This is a move that never should have been made. Unless Laremy Tunsil knocked the dude out, broke somebody's jaw or something like that, he should have still been a member of the Houston Texans. I don't know what the hell they were thinking with this decision to move on from him. The Patriots have been swiping that credit card relentlessly to start free agency. It's like every time you look up, they're signing somebody new. And I want to discuss a few of their marquee free agent signings up to this point in free agency that I really love. Starting off with Harold Landry. There's some pushback over this signing due to his low pass rush win rate from last year, which was around 4%. And obviously, he isn't the same player that he once was post ACL injury, but you just don't have 9 and 10 sack seasons if you're not somewhat of a productive pass rusher. And even if he reverts back to being like a 7-6 sack guy, he still is really formidable against the run. And this is a 3-year deal worth $43.5 million. So I don't think it's an incredible overpay. You're also bringing in somebody that's really familiar with Mike Vrabel, who's going to help further speed up the process of him implementing his culture or the vision that he has for the Patriots moving forward. So I like this signing of bringing in Harold Landry. The Patriots pass rush was the worst in the NFL when it came to getting after the quarterback, and getting a guy like Harold Landry is better than anybody that you had last year. Then you get defensive tackle Milton Williams. This is probably my favorite signing that the Patriots have made up to this point. Milton Williams, he was a huge part and a huge contributor on the Eagles defense last year. He played a major role during their Super Bowl run. Pretty good getting after the quarterback, but also solid stopping the run as well. And he got a deal that I was not expecting. 4 years, $26 million. I was expecting him to get paid a lot more than that. I thought that he was going to get like a 4-year deal worth like $40, $50 million, because when you have a guy like a Milton Williams that plays on the interior of the defensive line, especially D tackle, when you get somebody that can be semi-productive, rushing the quarterback, and also is formidable against the run, defensive tackles like this don't normally go for this low on the market. And at first, he was about to sign with the Carolina Panthers, but the Patriots swooped in last minute with a better offer. Milton Williams, he's going to be a stud in this defense next season. And if they can get Christian Barmore back fully healthy, I think he had like some blood clot issues or something, if I'm not mistaken. You got Milton Williams with Christian Barmore on the interior of your defensive line. Ooh, that's going to be so nasty. Then they get cornerback Carlton Davis. They signed him to a 3-year deal worth $60 million. Carlton Davis, nobody has talked about how good he's been over these last couple of years. He's been a top 20 corner in the NFL these past couple of seasons. And I guess with getting Carlton Davis, that means no more Travis Hunter talk. I guess you don't take him that high anymore unless you plan on playing him a good amount at receiver. But Carlton Davis, on the opposite side of Christian Gonzalez, this is a scary cornerback duo. This is probably a top 5 cornerback tandem right now in the league without a single snap being played. And you saw how good Carlton Davis was last year on the Detroit Lions. He was their best corner. He had some really good games. Now, linebacker Robert Spillane, as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I'm very familiar with Robert Spillane, and I've been shocked at how much he has improved since leaving Pittsburgh. He went to the Raiders, and he really became a well-rounded linebacker. We already knew he was a tackling machine. The last 2 years, he's had like over 140 tackles. Last year, he had 158. We know he's good against the run, but his pass coverage has gradually improved as well. And the last signing that the Patriots made that I think was really good was them getting offensive tackle Morgan Moses. We know the offensive line was just as bad as what the defensive line was, and you got to protect Drake May with how promising he looked. Getting Morgan Moses, he's not a lead offensive tackle. He's a solid offensive tackle, and it's really hard to come across those. And although he is a little bit up there in age, he had a really good season on the New York Jets last season. So I like the moves that the Patriots have made in free agency up to this point. Within a couple of signings, this is already a gradually improved team compared to what they were last year. Now, they did have some injuries. You're going to have a few guys coming back, like Christian Barmore. Look out for him. Like, he definitely is a stud, and there's a reason why Bill Belichick gave him a massive payday, and it wasn't, unjustifiable. Like, it definitely was worth it. He's one of the better defensive tackles in the game, and him alongside Milton Williams, I think is going to be one of the best defensive tackle combos in the NFL next season. Who the hell is Jaycee Horner? Who is this? Who is this guy who all of a sudden has become the highest paid cornerback in NFL history? And are the Carolina Panthers making a huge mistake paying this guy? Short answer, hell no. If you've watched the Carolina Panthers these last couple of years, which I doubt a lot of y'all have, which is evident by the responses I've seen on social media, you know that when Jaycee Horner is on the field, he's a top 5 cornerback in the game. And the only thing that has held Jaycee Horner back is his inability to stay healthy. Well, last year, he played the most snaps that he's ever played as a member of the Carolina Panthers, and he was one of the best cornerbacks in the league. He was second in completion percentage allowed at 51%. That was better than Derek Stingley and a little bit short of Christian Gonzalez. So the statistics back it up that this dude is an elite corner. So it's not like it's some kind of random massive overpay. The Panthers are just overspending on a guy who doesn't deserve the money. Like, if Jaycee Horner would have hit free agency, I promise you somebody probably would have given him a similar deal. And he was the only good part of the Panthers defense last year. Like, this defense sucked at everything. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't get after the quarterback. They couldn't stop the pass. If they had 11 Jaycee Horns, that defense probably ends up being top 5, top 10 in the league. If you even just had 3 Jaycee Horns on the Panthers defense, it's a much better defense. So for the people out here that are saying go do your research on Jaycee Horner. He was the 8th overall selection, the 2021 NFL draft, and he's one of the better players out of that cornerback class. And the cornerback market is about to skyrocket. Sauce Gardner came out a few days ago on X, and he was kind of questioning, why are cornerbacks not getting as much as some of these receivers, these edge rushers? What's up with that? So expect the cornerback market to boom, and the Panthers, them giving Jaycee Horner this massive deal was just them getting ahead of the cornerback market. And most elite corners get this kind of money. Like, Jalen Ramsey got a deal that was a little bit similar to this a few years ago. So it's not like Jaycee Horner didn't deserve this. When he's been healthy, he's been an elite corner. Like I said, he had the second lowest completion percentage allowed with cornerbacks that were targeted a minimum of 75 times. You're not going to throw the Jaycee Horner and have a lot of success going his way. So when you have a true shutdown cornerback like him, you got to pay the brother everything that he's worth. And the name is probably what throws a lot of people off because, let's be honest, nobody was watching the Carolina Panthers last year. Out of their first 2 games, when Bryce Young stunk it up and got benched, I stopped watching this team. But then once Bryce Young came in and he ended up improving out of nowhere after talking the raw wave, and the Panthers were watchable, I was looking at that defense, and I was like, damn, Jaycee Horner is the only dude out there that actually nobody wants to actually throw the ball to. And that was for a very good reason. So you get a guy like a Jaycee Horner, you got to lock him up. And you always want to lock up the guys that you drafted. And he also has become a more vocal leader in the locker room. Jaycee Horner, I was a little bit shocked that some people didn't really know who this dude was and that people were kind of questioning if he deserved this kind of deal. The only thing that concerns me about Jaycee Horner is he going to be able to remain durable? Because it's one thing to be a good player, but it doesn't mean much if you can't stay on the field. Are we going to see another Jair Alexander situation? I hope not. But this was definitely a move that the Panthers had to make, and he was definitely worth the money. This is definitely one of the best cornerbacks in the game statistically, and the film backs it up as well. Name me the last time a cornerback went off on Jaycee Horner. I can't remember the last time somebody had 100 yards receiving on him. This is a really good corner. And he probably is now the most underrated cornerback in the game with the responses I've been seeing to this contract. I can't believe so many people don't know how good Jaycee Horner is. But at the same time, it's not too surprising because, I get it. Nobody's watching the Carolina Panthers. Under the radar free agent signings that aren't receiving the attention they deserve for the big impacts that they're about. Run that back. There's a few under the radar free agency signings that aren't receiving the attention that they deserve for the big impacts they're about to make on their big teams this season. And we got to spotlight some of these guys like Nate Hobbs, who has been one of the best slot cornerbacks in the league ever since he first got drafted. When he was coming out of Illinois, he had an incredible rookie season with the Raiders. Now, his production has slowly dropped off over these last couple of years. He kind of struggled in the run game when it came to wrapping up. The coverage has kind of gone down, but I think a good amount of his drop off in production can also be attributed to him being banged up a lot over these last couple of seasons. But with him going to the Green Bay Packers, playing under Jeff Hafley's defense, which played at an incredible level last season, I expect Nate Hobbs to bounce back to playing at the level that we saw him perform at his first 2 years in the league, because I still view him as one of the best slot corners in the league. Like, although he wasn't as good last season as what we've seen him look in years past, he still is a top 5 slot corner in the game. He can contribute in the run game. He's pretty decent in coverage. You just got to get him playing back at his best level, and there's a great chance that happens in Green Bay. And you signed him to a pretty decent deal. Only 4 years, $48 million, $16 million of that is fully guaranteed. This is one of my favorite cornerbacks in the league. So the fact that you get Nate Hobbs in free agency and it wasn't really talked about that much kind of shocked me, because he has been pretty productive up to this point in his career. Dommy Brown, wide receiver, signs with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had somewhat of a breakout year with the Commanders last season. Statistically, it wasn't all that impressive because he kind of came on during the second half of the season, but he had 30 receptions, 308 receiving yards, and caught a touchdown. But during the playoffs, he became Jaden Daniels' second go-to guy at receiver outside of Terry McLaurin. And going to the Jaguars, this is a really good signing because you only get him for $10 million. He potentially could become your wide receiver 2 behind Brian Thomas, or a really good slot receiver. I don't know where they're going to line him up at, where they're going to put him. He's a pretty good route runner. He does kind of struggle with drops occasionally, but I like him a lot more than Christian Kirk. He's younger. You got a little bit more upside. He's explosive. And I was really high on Dommy Brown when he was coming out of North Carolina a few years ago. 1 year, $10 million. Huge steal for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Linebacker Cody Barton. Over the last couple of years, this guy has been one of the best kept secrets at linebacker in the league. He's not that great in coverage, but he's phenomenal against the run. And he's also a really good blitzer. This is the best free agency signing that the Tennessee Titans have made. It still doesn't make up for you giving Dan Moore that awful contract. But, Cody Barton, he's going to have a big impact on that Titans defense next year. 3 years, only $21 million. I think it's a massive steal because I felt like he could have gotten a little bit more with how good he's been the past couple of seasons. Like, this is definitely a really solid linebacker that the Titans are going to be getting this upcoming season. Dante Jackson signs with the Los Angeles Chargers, 2 years, $13 million. He was pretty good with the Steelers last year. He had a career high in interceptions with 5, and he doesn't consistently get burnt. He gets burnt occasionally, but not as much as your average corner does. I feel like Dante Jackson kind of fits the mold of an above average corner. He's a really good cornerback too. He's not going to be your number 1 corner, but he definitely is really good if you got another star cornerback to pair alongside of him. He's only 29 years old, so he still has about a few good years of football left in him. 2 years, $13 million for a pretty good cornerback, too, is a huge steal. Like, I thought he probably could have gotten a little bit more than that. Hell, if he was going to get this kind of contract, I don't see why the Steelers didn't bring him back. That's a little bit of a head-scratcher. And with how good that rookie cornerback class was that the Chargers brought in, Dante Jackson, I think he's going to fit in pretty perfectly with that young secondary. He can be a good veteran leader for those guys, a good mentor as well. And then lastly, I got another cornerback on here, Paulson Adebo, who signs with the New York Giants. Surprisingly, I watched a lot of Paulson Adebo throughout his career, not just in the NFL, but in the college as well. He has really good size, incredible length. It's really hard to beat Paulson Adebo in man coverage. His only issue is sometimes he can be a little bit too damn handsy. He does tend to get called for pass interference a good amount of times, which is why he's like a really high-end cornerback too, but he can be a really solid cornerback one if he can just work on the pass interference calls. He kind of reminds me a lot of Joey Porter Jr. If you watch a lot of him with the Steelers, like big, physical, press, man-to-man corner, bump and run, wants to get in your face, wants to get physical with you. You know, you definitely can understand why he does get the amount of penalties that he does, but at 6'2", 192 pounds, for him to move the way that he does is really impressive. And the Giants signed him to a 3-year deal, $18 million. I think that's pretty good. He gets a massive bonus though, $36 million fully guaranteed. Sheesh, that's definitely a lot for him. But you know, I definitely think that Paulson Adebo, there's a strong chance that maybe he ends up becoming their best corner. Hopefully that doesn't end up being the case, since you did use a first-round pick on Deonte Banks, but Deonte Banks was like barbecue chicken against anybody he lined up against last year. But him and Paulson Adebo, maybe that could be a really good formidable cornerback tandem. But don't be surprised if Paulson Adebo, maybe he ends up becoming the cornerback one of the New York Giants with how Deonte Banks has struggled. But these are a few under-the-radar free agency signings that are going to have major impacts on their new teams this upcoming season. You guys need to be on the lookout for these guys.